Hey everyone, welcome to Gabriel's Hobby Studio. Today I'm giving you my ultimate guide to ladders. If you find yourself liking this video at any point, please hit that like button and smash the subscribe button. We will go through multiple different ways of making ladders, and then at the end I'll group them up by what I think of them. To make all the ladders that I have scheduled today, these are the tools that you're going to need. A pencil, or pen, hobby knife or utility knife, snips, pliers, and you can use any kind of glue, from hot glue to super glue to tacky glue. If you don't have snips or you don't have a good knife to cut through some of these materials, you could use good scissors. Okay, so the first kind of ladders are going to be extremely basic. We're just going to make simple stick ladders. You can use popsicle sticks or any other kind of little tongue depressors or barbecue skewers or toothpicks to make these. To start off with, I'm cutting roughly equal lengths of this flat stock, and these will become the rails of the ladder. Next, I will be cutting out some fairly equal sized strips of that same stock to make the rungs. From here on, it's really simple. You're just going to line up and space the two rails far enough apart that you can fit the rungs on there. I'll just repeat this process of attaching rungs until there's enough on here to make it look like a ladder. Now, on this other one, we can continue the same process that we did before with the two rails, and then I'm not going to be precious about the rungs. I'm just going to use these pliers and break them off so that way they've got jagged ends. This will make it look a little more rough or broken depending on the extent of the damage at the ends. Next, we have ladders made out of sprue. These are really simple to make and can look pretty good for an industrial setting because each of the bars are the exact same shape. Downside is that we know it's sprue because we're all familiar with the shape of sprue, and it will require a bit more cleanup because of the runners going from the sprue to the miniature cast parts. If there are any identifying logos, letters, symbols, or any kind of writing on the backside of these, then you can just take your knife and scrape them off, or you can take sandpaper or a sanding stick or a nail file and just file it away. But if the letters don't bother you, then you could save yourself this step and just begin putting them together. For me personally, with this kind of sprue, the common ones from Games Workshop, I prefer the whiter part be the attachment surface for the glue and attaching the rungs to the rails. Just like before, we're going to put a little bit of super glue every so often and start attaching these rungs, and fairly soon we'll have a ladder. And number 3, you could use hair curlers to make ladders. The outer partial cylinder works really well, and I've got an example here. It provides a good representation of that guard that's typically on more modern or industrial ladders. You could also cut that piece up and make some ladders out of it, and for that I'm just going to use these scissors because it's faster to get through them. And with this cut out, we just need to clean up the middle part so it's just the two rails and the rungs, and it's done. Number 4, foam core ladders. Right off the bat, you could just carve out everything except for the rails and the rungs from a strip of foam core, but that would be really tedious, and instead of cutting out the middle sections, I would just rather cut out strips of foam and then re-glue them together. I think that's easier. And you could incorporate different media into the use with the foam core as well. You could add some plastic canvas or use some skewers or toothpicks or even some of this flat stock to just make it look a little different than foam core. My preference would be to use toothpicks because they're smaller than the barbecue skewers and you can just push them right through the foam of the foam core. Okay, now one of my favorite methods is using staples as ladders. If you're using anything with a paper back like foam core, or if you're using cardboard, I would recommend taking your hobby knife and just poking the initial holes on there so that way you can get the staple in easier. Otherwise, you might crush the foam beneath or start crushing the cardboard that you're trying to push that into. Using staples is really great for simulating that type of bent rebar ladder. The next 2 I'm going to do simultaneously. You can make rope ladders or chain ladders. With the rope ladders, you just knot the middle of the rungs around the sides of the rails, and it's basically the same thing for chain ladders except for manipulating the links in the chain. I'll explain in just a sec. If you're using chain, you might want to take off a few links from the chain first, so that way you've got them later to put chain back together in the shape that you want it. You will need 2 links per rung on the ladder. Now, with the pieces that we pulled off earlier, we can thread those between the ends of the rung and one of the links on the rail, and then retighten and attach that link back together. This will then make it all one continuous piece. Next, you could just use plastic canvas to make your ladders. Cut out the inside bits until you've got the shape of the ladder that you want. Now, for the remaining couple of methods here, I don't actually have the materials to make these to show you, but I have seen other people use these materials. So I'm going to include a little snippet of these makers, and a link to their full video will be in the description below, so that way you can pay them a visit and watch the full video. From Eric's Hobby Workshop, there's the tennis racket idea. He says that you can get these at dollar stores, but I have been unable to find them, and I really don't want to have to order them online. And from RFD Hobby, he released a video where he uses a gutter guard, which is essentially just like chicken wire, which is very similar to how he's using that gutter guard. So this has been my ultimate guide to ladders, going from sticks to sprues to hair curlers, foam core, plastic canvas, staples, chains, and rope. Oh my!